Hi everyone, I'm Joe Fry, and this is my channel, Jojo Fry Rocks, and this is part 2 of my deep dive into guitar amps with Andy Mack from Guitar Stuff Studio. And I also enlisted the help of some of my other guitar YouTube friends who have given me some great tips and advice, particularly on what to look for and what to bear in mind when you're buying a new amp, or if you're a beginner and you're just starting out buying your first amp. So I hope you'll find this as entertaining and useful as I have making it. And yeah, let me know in the comments, what's your favourite amp? And do you have any insights and advice and tips, perhaps that you wish you'd known when you were just starting out and getting your first amp?
Basically, a couple of tips that I would suggest. Definitely the first one is getting yourself an EQ pedal. It could just help with your overall sound, and you could totally change the actual sound of the amp itself as well as the guitars you're playing. So EQ to me is definitely something that is really, really important. And I think as a beginner, I would go with that clean pedal platform friendly type amp and delve into effects pedals to find that kind of amp that you're looking for, where you can put the amp in a box type thing into it and see if that's the sound that you're looking for, and it kind of gives you more of a laser focused idea of what you're really after, and then go for that more expensive, whether it be a Friedman amp or a Marshall or an Orange. I've owned all of those except for Friedman, and I'm sure I'll own that someday. So hopefully that's helpful, and I appreciate you asking my opinion.
Right, top tips for a beginner on buying and choosing their first amp in 2025. That's a tricky one. Do you even need an amp in 2025? So, who's the guy? Is it John Connor? Digital John, the guy from the Andertons videos.
I am Digital John.
Digital John! I'm pretty sure he was on record before as saying that he'd never used a real amp, just all modelling stuff. And he's got to a pretty awesome level of guitar player, so do you really need an amp these days? Probably not. I mean, you've got options like plugins and positive grid sparks and all these cool products. I'm a bit out of touch with it all, to be honest with you. But my recommendation, what I would probably go for would be some kind of modern-ish modelling amp. So Fender Mustang, Boss Katana, Line 6 Catalyst, and these are all kind of powerful enough, most of them, for you to go and do a small gig with if you wanted to in future as well, or a rehearsal. I'm a big believer in a 12-inch speaker if you can get one. I just always prefer that kind of fuller sound, even sounds good at low volumes. A lot of old school people might say just get a one-channel amp and don't be distracted with effects and gizmos and stuff. Just have the one sound and control from your guitar the volume and tone, and pay attention to dynamics and your touch and things like that. I think that's all good and well, but in 2025, even like the last, I don't know, several years, and if we're talking about a kid as a beginner, you're up against getting them to stick with playing the guitar, and your competition is phone, iPad, gaming, social media. There's just so many distractions these days. Tamagotchis, roller skates, the list goes on. So I think that a guitarist's playing experience should be as fun as possible. So if that means experimenting with a load of effects and amp models, and just if it makes it more fun for them, I think that's the way to go. I'm all for that. And I also think it's never too early to be learning about how effects pedals work and things like that. So yeah, modelling-ish amp with effects, 12-inch speaker, and also having the option to change things at your feet, because if you're using something like this wee guy, this wee Fender Mustang micro thing, this is all good for practice and stuff, but if you need to change your patch, you don't want to be touching this. You also don't want to have to be going into your app to change sounds. Having something at your feet, even this wee guy, this wee Licaro, what is this, Cube Baby? This is like a wee modeler thing. something where you can change the sound with your feet. Imagine you're doing Smells Like Teen Spirit, dun, 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 and then it goes into the clean bit. You don't want to be touching things.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Do it with your feet. That's it, the end. Good luck.
The next part of the question Joe asked me to answer was, what's the best amp for beginners? And you might think I'd say this, but it might not be, because of all the controls and all the power this thing has. It could be a bit daunting. And I'm not sure that giving a beginner lots of options in the beginning is a good idea. So I started with a simple 2-channel amp, clean and distortion, with this little button on the front. It was a Fender 15, I think, or a Squier 15. And it probably sounded terrible, but that was my amp. So I would say for a beginner, you need something you can carry, which this does fall into, but something that is not too complicated or requires reading the manual. So I would actually keep it simpler than this for a first amp. Maybe the Blackstar Debut 50 is a good choice, but anything that is inspiring to make you play, and the fact that you can take it places, because you should play guitar wherever you can. All right, thank you for having me on the show, Joe. I hope that helped, and I guess I'll see you around at my channel.
Let's say I'm just starting out and I've got my first guitar and I need to buy an amp.
Okay, what kind of what kind of guitar have you got? What kind of music do you want to play? What setting are you going to play that music in? Are you going to play just in your bedroom, or are you going to play pubs, or are you going to play like small clubs, or it all depends on what you want to do with that amp, because some amps are suitable for many of these things and then others aren't.
So I think this is it. So when I got my first proper amp, like i.e. not just practice amp, so I was looking for something that I could still use to practice at home, because it was replacing the small practice amp, because I was trading that in as part of buying it. But I was starting to, go out playing in pubs and stuff. So I wanted something that would be suitable for, practicing at home and playing live, but not huge gigs.
But at the same time, you could get like a 10-watt amp and mic it up into the PA. It's...
You see, I didn't know about any of that, so that's why I went out and bought a 50-watt amp and then just blasted everyone in the pub to oblivion.
And then you've got guitarists that aren't even using amps now. They're just going straight into front of house with a little profiler or something. It's crazy.
I mean, that's a whole other thing that I need to also understand and get my head around, because that's a whole new world to me.
Okay, well, putting it very simply, you've got your band on stage, you've got your dude at the other end of the hall on his mixing desk, and he's controlling the stuff that's coming out of the big PA speakers. Everything's coming out of those speakers. You've got the drum kit, the singer, the guitar amps are, coming out of those. Everything's mic'd up and it's all coming out, and that's how he mixes it all. But instead of you having an amp behind you, your guitar is just going straight into your effects, straight into the desk, and it's just coming straight out of the PA. And you can either have a monitor, like a wedge monitor in front of you, or your IEMs. So there's guitarists that are just showing up with a guitar and a profiler and just going straight into front of house now. And
like a Tonex or something.
Yeah, Tonex, or the Headrush is quite a popular one as well.
Okay, so you can. So you can do that. Nowadays you might not even necessarily use an amp.
Yeah, there's many guitarists for big huge bands not even using amps anymore. They're just going straight to front of house. When
I first wanted to start buying, getting some proper gear and a proper amp, to sort of moving on from that initial beginner stage and starting to join bands and stuff and going to practices and things. I just kind of think, what information should I have been told because basically I just went into a music shop and asked them what I should buy, and that's not always the greatest approach.
No, I
you
mean,
should
obviously
have some knowledge yourself.
I mean, obviously these guys have got a living to make, and they're going to sell whatever's. I mean, they're not going to shaft you.
I think I came out with something that met my needs for that time, really. But there are some things that I think I wish I'd been a bit more informed, and had a bit more of an idea of like what I should be looking for, and in case there's sort of like people watching my channel in that position.
Yeah, I mean, how loud do you need that amp to be, really?
These go to 11.
If you're just going to be playing at home, then a 10-watt amp is plenty. 20-watt amp, more than enough.
I also didn't really understand that volume isn't necessarily related to wattage, to power.
Yeah, I mean, it's an indicator.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, my 100-watt Marshall is going to be louder than your 10-watt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yamaha THX or whatever they're called.
But there isn't that much difference in like kind of volume, I suppose, between like a 50 and a 100-watt. It's just that the 100-watt has more what they call headroom.
I think unless you're getting into the realms of where the drum kit, unless you're getting into the realms of where the drum kit needs to be mic'd up, a 50-watt amp is more than loud enough.
So that's the key thing. So if you're playing live in a band with live drums, 50 watts is going to be enough.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And more than what you need absolutely for just playing at home.
Yeah. I mean, I've got what's the smallest amp I've got? I've got one of those little orange micro Terras.
Oh, of course. There's tiny amps nowadays.
Little
really
teeny tiny thing that.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've put that past number 2 at home because it's that loud. It's insanely loud, and I mean that's only a 8-inch speaker in.
So that is a proper amp.
That with a cab.
Yeah,
it's just a teeny tiny 8-inch speaker in the cab.
And it's how many watts was it?
3 or 5 watts. I can't remember. Yeah,
so really quite low wattage, really small, obviously very portable, very convenient.
Yeah, and
plenty loud enough, obviously. For
God, yeah, I've used that at band practice before, and I don't think I had it up past 5 or 6. It's super loud. An amp like that, though, is a bit of a one-trick pony. It gives you a particular sound.
Yeah, so you don't have all the tonal options that you would have.
I'm going to say that 99% of my viewers and 99% of your viewers are not rock stars.
Sorry, guys. You're not rock stars.
I don't mean that in a bad way, guys.
We're all rock stars in our own mind.
That's it, in our own minds. So, it's something like, what can I use to practice with my band, or what can I use to practice at home? I mean, I don't usually use an amp when I'm practicing at home. I'm usually just headphones. I'll just go straight into the Tonex and then straight into headphones, and I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's processor.
That's kind of useful because obviously then you're not disturbing anyone or the dogs or your neighbours or anyone else. So yeah, that's a really kind of useful thing. But I feel like sometimes it's nice to just be able to hear the sound in the room.
I don't know. When I'm practicing, I find that I pick up on my mistakes a lot more when I'm wearing headphones.
Yeah, I don't want to hear my mistakes. I
want to hear my mistakes so that I can get better.
I suppose if you're interested in getting better, fair enough.
I'm going to send you a couple of processors down for you to just play with.
And
you can just just plug into them, put some headphones on, and play. And honestly, I think your mind will be changed.
That'd be really great, actually, because that's something I've never explored. And as you know, because I've not been into amps particularly, and I've always had digital ones and digital modelling ones, I've not been into effects and pedals because I've had them built in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just like trying different things. I like amp. Look, I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't really have much going on at all. I don't have much to spend my money on. And, you know, buying pedals and amps and stuff, I know it's not going to make me a better guitar player, but it makes me happy. And that's, you know, and it is really nice to get an amp, you know, that you've never had before, you know, to see what you can do with it.
And I think for me, at the end of the day, because I play things that are quite diverse, a lot of the different things that I like to play are quite different styles. And I think that's why I opted again for a modelling amp.
Absolutely. If you're looking for diversity, you know, so 1 minute you're playing an Ocean Colour Scene song, and then the next minute,
I love my Ocean Colour Scene.
You're playing something by Rat. You know, you obviously want something that's going to tick as many boxes as possible, and you know, amps like the Katana, the Cube. Basically, any of the decent modelling amps are 100% the way forward with stuff like that. But you know, if you're in a Stevie Ray Vaughan cover band, or you know, you want to sound like Eddie Van Halen, then you know, tubes are the way forward. I always thought that the AC30 was an overhyped amp, you know, the Vox, until I played through one. And I was like, oh my God, you know, because I've got loads of patches and pedals that make you sound like an AC30. Nothing quite stacks up to the same as playing through one.
And and I think actually I'm kind of thinking now, when I think about it, when I've been into my local guitar shops and tried, just, you know, I've just had to mess around with guitars. They always, I think, plug you into, I think it's like a Black Star, one of the tube amps, the small ones, and you always sound brilliant in the shop, and I think that is probably to do with the amp, because I just kind of think, my playing has sounded quite different when I'm in the guitar shop.
Sorry, what is this one? I'm so tempted to get one of these. Harley Benton have got a Tube 15 Celestian, and it's a tube amp. It's a 15-watt tube amp, switchable between 15 and 1 watts, with a Celestian speaker in it for 200 quid.
Right, that sounds pretty cool. So that's a combo amp, is it? Yeah, because it's got a speaker. Yeah,
tiny little combo. Yeah, and I'm like, I'm so tempted just to get one to see what it sounds like. I've seen a few videos on them, and people are like, how have they done this for that amount of money?
Well, I remember watching your video because you got the Harley Benton cab, didn't you? And you said that's been absolutely brilliant. I
love that cab. That is my number one go-to cab now.
Yeah,
that's a 2x12.
So that they're obviously making some really, really great stuff.
And I mean, that does have the Chinese Celestians in it. But then I've seen a lot of people online recently saying that the Chinese Celestians are actually superior now. I mean, I'm not saying that they are. I'm not.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
But that cab, I mean, is solid. It weighs a ton. It's just so well put together. And anything that I plug into that cab sounds amazing. Like, it just instantly sounds good. I mean, I like having different heads. I mean, I think in my spare room, I think I've got like 4 heads in there at the moment. But I've only got the 2x12 cab in there. So it'll just be like, which one of these heads is going to go into the cab today? That's kind of how I do it. It's just like what kind of mood is going to take me. So yeah, I don't know. It's such a personal thing. That's like me saying, oh, everyone should play a Fender Mustang, or
no, totally.
Jacksons are the best guitars. It's
So they're
actually, that's a lie. We all know Ibanez are.
well, yeah, we do. I'll even let you have that one, despite Floyd Roses and whatnot, because they are fantastic, and I do love my RG 550. But I think, like you say, it is personal, and you'd obviously kind of develop an ear for these things like over the years. But when you're just starting out, let's say you just want a sort of a really flexible, versatile thing that you can use for home, and maybe at most an open mic night or something.
For me, from my experience, going on what I have actually used, I would say Roland Cube every time. Inexpensive, very lightweight, very portable, built-in effects, built-in tuner. They're great. But then I don't really have that much to compare it to because I've never tried the Katanas.
Yeah, sure. But it's that principle of like something, as you say, inexpensive, small, lightweight, lots of features. And that's probably the sort of thing that you, at that point, want to be looking at. But if you really didn't want to go the sort of digital modelling route, and let's say you want something that just has nice clean tones, but also warm and some vintagey rock bluesy tones, but still in a reasonably affordable amp. Because this was the other thing that I was maybe looking at, was like a Fender Blues Junior, but they're so expensive, and even secondhand, they're so expensive.
I played in a band with a guy who had a Fender Mustang, little Fender modelling amp. That sounded amazing. Judy used to have a Fender Mustang as well.
Oh, right. Right.
They are great, fantastic amps. I would have a Fender Mustang. Even the Marshall Code amps are pretty good. There's just so many to choose from, and I think it's a case of like, try as many as you can.
Yes. Actually, yeah, that's it, isn't it? I think that's the thing that we always sort of like keep coming back to in terms of guitars and gear. You really have to try it.
It doesn't matter. I mean, like I could, do a demo of, whatever amp and put it up on YouTube, and by the time I've tweaked the audio and compressed it and all the rest of it and made it sound amazing, that's not necessarily what you're going to hear when you plug into that amp at home. It's the same for guitars. It's the same for pedals. YouTube demos are kind of a little bit obsolete now, to a point where, they
can give you an idea. They give you a kind of rough guide, I suppose. But
ever since Josh Scott did the Bad Monkey video, I don't believe. Have you seen that one?
What, where he recreates the...
He got a Bad Monkey pedal.
Yeah.
And made it sound exactly the same as a $5,000 Klon.
Yeah.
A Tumnus. Just the way he dialed it in, and that just goes to show, if you know what you're doing with stuff, then you can make it sound good.
So I think the takeaway...
Unless it's a Line 6 Spider.
Actually, it actually doesn't sound... It's not too bad. You can still get some usable sounds out of it, particularly on the clean channel. It's actually quite a nice clean.
That's actually one of the things about the Cube that I liked so much, was the clean sounds from it. The cleans are really big, fat, warm cleans. Just a little bit of reverb, a little bit of delay, and you've got a spanking clean sound out of the Cube. I will say to you, if you ever see one come up on Marketplace or something like that, and it's close by and it's 50 quid, get it. I even the Micro Cube, You know, the tiny little buskers one. They are amazing. And the distortion sounds that they've got built into them are fantastic.
Oh, right, because that's usually the thing that doesn't sound so good in those.
No, it sounds amazing.
Right, cool. Okay. And then the last question that I was going to ask you about was, what do you think are good amps to use as a pedal platform? So if someone did want to kind of start using pedals, what sort of amps do you think take pedals really well?
Anything. It all depends on what kind of pedals you want. But if you've got something with a nice, decent, warm, fat, clean sound to start with, then you've got you've got a good platform to work on for pedals. Because if your clean sound sucks, then it doesn't matter how many pedals you put into it; it's still going to suck.
Right. So this is the key thing about it. Then is it needs to have a nice. You need to be happy with the clean sound.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's one of the things I like about the Orange amps as well, as the clean sound is epic. Marshalls, I'm not a big fan of the clean sound.
No, actually, and you never hear a lot of people say, "Oh yeah, I really love using my Marshalls for clean." Like you never hear people say that, so there must be a reason.
But I mean, for me, the nicest clean sounding amp out there is the Roland Jazz Chorus. That's the daddy of clean sounds for me.
Right. So either one of those or something that sounds like one of those.
Yeah, I mean, even like, obviously Fender Twin Reverb, you're looking at big money, but I mean the Fender Mustang, the Fender Frontman is quite a good platform as well for pedals.
Right.
Fender Frontman, I think that's quite a big heavy amp though. Frontman was a bit of a, I think it was kind of like an 80s, 90s amp, solid state.
Okay.
Bit lower end, it's not quite as expensive, and you can probably pick up a 100 watt Frontman for about 150 quid now.
Oh, that's all right.
Maybe even less.
That's reasonable.
Very good pedal platform though, nice and loud.
Yeah, right, exactly. So I'd say, if you're just experimenting, obviously you're not looking to invest hundreds or thousands of pounds.
I think what I would always say to people is, like, I think most guitarists have an idea in their head who they want to sound like or what they want to sound like. So, they'll hear James Hetfield and say, I want to chug like that. Or, they'll hear Steve Vai and say, I want to, have nice, clean, soaring solos like that. Or, I want to sound like Marty Friedman when he's shredding. And then the thing is, go and look and see what those guys are using. Andertons did, I don't know if they still do them, but they used to do sound like such and such on a budget.
Yes, I've seen a couple of those actually.
Videos. They were really good, and like, I'm going to sound like such and such a guitar player, so I'll get this amp, but I'll get this guitar and I'll get these pedals. And I mean, that's always a great place to start.
I think the only thing I would say about those is, because I've watched a couple of them, and I think they did one on Slash, because I remember watching it when I was making a video about Slash. And I thought the interesting thing was they always spent more of their budget, whatever that budget was, say it's $1,000 or something. They always spent more of their budget on the amp than they did on the guitar.
Yeah.
And I didn't know whether that was because they think more of the, tone comes from the amp and therefore spend more on an amp. Or is it because Andertons make more of a profit on amps than on guitars?
I don't know. I don't know what Anderton's profit margins are based on, but no, the amp is an important thing. I mean, if you're going to show up and do a gig and you're playing in a Guns N' Roses or a Snake Pit cover band, then obviously, you're going to want a Marshall.
Yeah, more or less.
So yeah, I think it all depends on what you want to sound like. What I always say to somebody is, like, if you want to sound like such and such a guitarist, then what gear are they using? How do they get that sound? And there's always cheaper ways of recreating it. You might not get it spot on, but there's always ways of making yourself sound like that. I mean, Andy Summers Jazz Chorus, the Neo Mistress, not the Neo Mistress, the Deluxe Electric Mistress pedal. But you can kind of get the same with a decent clean sound with a bit of chorus and a bit of a phaser. A bit of a chorus and a flanger, and you can get a decent police sound. So
or you can, in my case, just go and find a patch.
I just went out and bought the Andy Summers Walking on the Moon pedal.
Or
as
the
well,
Walking on the Moon pedal. That's also it's kind of similar, isn't it? But
I love that pedal.
There are, like you say, there's so many options available to us now. There's so much gear out there. There's so many different approaches.
So many people as well are just playing into an interface into the computers or laptops these days. That everything's guitar rig or it's plugins or whatever. So I think amps have taken. Amps are really taking a back seat now. And they will. It's just a sign of the times. It is what it is, but it means I can buy amps cheaper, and I like amps. So,
and I would still like to try some different ones, and find out a bit more about.
Just do what I do. Just keep your eye on Marketplace and just see what comes up and. Sometimes you can get some real stills. I mean, one of those Black Star heads I got it for 50 quid off of eBay. I had to drive for an hour to go and pick it up, but I got a 250 quid amp head for 50 quid and an hour's drive. Perfect.
See, that's the kind of thing that I think I would like to kind of have a look at, because it's something I haven't really explored. And I think I need to get my head around it a bit more.
I know it's something I'm trying to concentrate a bit more on. My channel now is used gear, retro gear, gear that I can find cheap and making it, this is what this can do. And obviously we've got other people selling stuff now that they bought during lockdown and decided that they don't want to play guitars anymore. So
that is a very good point as well. So
Cha-ching.
People wanting to liquidate what they've got for some extra cash, then
absolutely. And it's always worth checking the second-hand market, so especially Marketplace, Gumtree. If you're in the UK, is it Craigslist in there?
Craigslist or something? Yeah.
I don't know. That sounds really seedy for some reason.
yeah. Maybe that's not the place to go for guitar
if you
gear.
Get anything off Craigslist, take a friend. That's the best advice I can give you.
Yeah, don't meet anyone in a parking lot at night or whatever. But great top tip. Thanks for that.
Yeah, there you go. That's public safety announcement. PSA.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for that, Andy. I feel like I've got a much better idea now of the kind of things that I might want to explore a little bit more.
Just go and buy some amps.
But yeah, go. Everyone should anyway. Go physically in person into a shop if there is still one near you. If you've still got one open, go and support them. Go and try some stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just see what kind of sounds you can get out of it and what you like. And so, yeah, that's probably the best thing to do. All right. Thanks for your time this morning. And
thank you for having us, Joe.
Cheers, Andy, and see you on the next stream, probably.
All right. Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.
Bye.